Speaker's Corner, there's a hierarchy, right, of people down there. And then you have like lower level foot soldiers. Then you have like the top scouts. You have the people that just follow him, basically minions. And these, in the eyes of the minions, these top boys can do no wrong. Because myself and my brother Gary, we go down there to ask questions and to see if people can stand on their square. Yeah, I mean, we do all kinds of things. We have conversations with them about all kinds of stuff. My number one thing is, can you prove what you're talking about? It seems to have caused a stir amongst them because myself and Gary go for the big scalps. Not so much the Christians, but the Muslims. And they've really got this bee in their bonnet about me communicating with my ancestors, right? I said to them 100% that is a subjective belief. They can't seem to get their head around it though. Like they keep talking about it like it's something that they need to understand, and I'm not gonna let them understand it. They're not in the realms to understand it, and I don't need them to understand it. It's not something that I need them to do. What I find with religious people is that they can only view the world one way. If the world can't be viewed that way, their way, then what they try to do, they try to superimpose their way of looking at things on you. So if I tell you I communicate with my ancestors, they will say, oh, you worship your ancestors, because the only reference they have to something outside of themselves is worship. I don't worship my ancestors. My ancestors are me. If I worship myself, that would be a little bit too egotistical and arrogant for my own good. I don't know. They can't seem to wrap their head around very simple concepts, and I just think a religious mind is a wasted mind, if I'm honest. I asked them if they can prove their God. No one can prove their God. If they could prove their God, they would be a Nobel Peace Prize winner, right? Because God will be proven, just like 1 + 1 = 2 is proven. We know that. We'd know that God exists and then move on to the next phase. Whereas they haven't proven God, they can't move on to the next phase, and they stay stuck. They just ask ridiculous questions and they come up with ridiculous answers. The Muslims in particular, what I found is they are a bunch of people who are, first of all, that in my encounters with them, I've come across them and they blatantly lie. They blatantly lie to you. The reason why I think they blatantly lie is because when you go into their text, their most treasured hadith, which isn't the Quran, it is apparently the life and times of the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet Muhammad states that it's okay to actually lie. I'm gonna show you why it's okay for them to lie. They're not gonna like this, right? But their Prophet specifically said, when you lie, it's not an actual lie. So I'm gonna read from their hadith. Sahih Bukhari, which is their most treasured hadith, and all Muslims say it is the most authentic hadith. Sahih Bukhari, volume 3, book 49, number 857, narrated by, I can't pronounce his name, Kith bint Uqba, that she heard Allah's apostle, Muhammad, saying, he who makes peace between the people by inventing good information or saying good things is not a liar. Now, when you break that down, it says you can invent good information, but you're not a liar. How can inventing something that is not true not be a lie? Whether it could be good or bad. I can say, to keep peace between you and your wife, you may have had an argument between you and your wife. And I phone her and I say, listen, your husband says you're the most fantastic wife in the world. And I phone you and say, listen, your wife says you're the most fantastic husband in the world. And then you two come together. I just created I just invented good information to try and keep the peace between you and your wife. But was I telling the truth? No, because you didn't say she was the best wife in the world, and she didn't say you were the best husband in the world. So when you two come together and speak and you say, oh, you know what, wife, thank you for saying that I was the best husband in the world, she's going to be like, what? I didn't say that. You're going to say, well, you said I was the best husband. You said, no, you said I was the best wife. And then we're back to square one again. I'm saying they tell you their religion is a religion of peace. This is what they tell you, right? And I don't believe that for a goddamn second. I go to Hyde Park on a regular basis, and if 20 Buddhists walked in that Hyde Park and started speaking about Buddhism, I'm sure I could actually feel the peace of them. They could probably see the peace emanating from them. When I see Muslims at Hyde Park, I don't see or feel peace. As a matter of fact, I've been physically threatened by Muslims at Hyde Park. That's not peaceful. Unless they have a different definition of peace, to me, that ain't peaceful. So what I'm trying to say is they invent good information. And what's the good information that they've invented? Islam is a religion of peace. That's invented. There's absolutely no way Islam is a religion of peace. I interact with these people on a weekly, sometimes fortnightly basis, right? I don't feel peace off them. Their religion is not the religion of peace. They invent that information, that good information, to try and keep the peace. They not only invent good information, they blatantly lie to your face. I'm telling you, these people are the most sly, manipulative people that I've come across in a conversation. There's a word called sophistry. I'm going to bring up this word, and this is what Muslims use on a regular basis. Sophistry, yeah, is the use of clever but false arguments, especially with the intention of deceiving. Muslims create these arguments, right? They sound clever, but they're false. And they're all about trying to deceive you. To me, that's what I found. So they will say, the Quran is a fact, and Allah exists. And I will say, prove Allah exists, to a counter to that. And they will say, no, you disprove Allah exists. Sounds clever, but it's a false argument, because you can't prove something you can't disprove something, that already hasn't been proven. That you haven't proved you're a billionaire yet, but you're asking me to disprove you're a billionaire. It doesn't make sense. And they create that kind of circular false argument for people to jump through hoops. So they get very frustrated because I don't jump through their stupid hoops. Now, the average person may fall into that line of questioning and be like, oh, it's true, I can't disprove Allah exists. And they say, you see, you can't disprove Allah exists. Fine, you can't disprove unicorns on Mars exist. You can't disprove that either. So if we want to go down that line of questioning, there's a lot of things that we can't disprove. So anything's possible. Invisible monkeys are possible. Can you disprove invisible monkeys? No, I can't disprove invisible monkeys. All right, well then I'm going to say the invisible monkeys are true. So that's their line of argument. And when you break it down, it's very playground school tactics that they use, but I'm too smart for it and they do not like it at all. You know what I feel like? I feel like a lot of people think they have the answer, but a lot of people are there searching. A lot of people are there to proselytize. A lot of people are there to try to give you their take on the world, right? I think deep down, all human beings are just searching, bro. They want to know, and whatever comforts them at that time is what they're going to roll with, which is why people's belief systems change. I know people that used to be Muslim. I know that people that then became a Hebrew, as they called it. I know people that have been Christian and then come a Muslim. Everyone's searching, bro. Like, it can change. The one thing that can't change is your DNA. Because I'm on my own journey, what happens is you meet people on your journey, right? And so the people that I've met on my journey, my own spiritual journey, would be religious people, because everyone's on a spiritual journey to some degree. But what I found is, the reason I keep going down there, if I'm honest, I want to get rid of their ego. Now, I've got an ego. Every human being's got an ego, right? But the religious ego is out of control. To think that you know everything and we're all in the same boat, or do you know what, because we're all in the same boat as we're trying to find out. But there are people here that tell you that they know this, and the fact that they know it, they're going to try and ridicule you, or ridicule other people, not just you, just like the whole of the rest of the world. You'll have 1.6 billion Muslims or 2 however billion Christians. Like they don't follow one another, right? So if we don't kind of understand that there's like a bigger picture here, like no one's belief system is better than another person. You have a different one. But the ego that says, oh, mine's better than yours, mine's better than yours, I want to smash that. I'm not even gonna lie, because mine ain't better than anyone else's. Everything is atoms. Everything that we know of as human beings are atoms. There's nothing that we know of that isn't atoms in one way, shape or form. Particles, energy in one way, shape or form. Down to your heart, down to that tree, down to the camera that you're using now. It's all energy. It's all energy vibrating on different frequency. And so energy is everything. So this is what people don't get their head around. If energy is everything, then what is the source of everything? I would say energy. That would be the source, because if I said to you, yo, bro, everything contains sugar. Everything in love contains sugar. So then I would come to the conclusion, well, if everything contains sugar, then then sugar must be the source of everything, because everything contains it. It's the same thing. Energy is everything. It's in everything. So energy is everything, and everything's energy. But what that does is that it puts you in a cycle. And people think there's a beginning of the circle. And I've said to people, there's no beginning of a circle. Right? You can't find me the beginning of a circle. Everything is a circle. It's just a cycle of energy. I mean, astrophysicists have concluded that 96% of the universe is dark matter or dark energy. That's what they've concluded. Those are the highest minds in the astrophysicist world, right? The universe is merely a form of energy transformed into what we know right now. And what's interesting is that people tell me that God, or Muslims specifically say that God is not energy, right? We don't know of anything, right, that creates something from itself and is not a part of that. Well, I'm going by according to their belief system. They say Allah created the universe, right? That's what they say. So then I say, okay, Allah created the universe. So if there was only Allah, remember, there's only Allah in existence, because they say God was alone, just God, not us. What did he create the universe from? Logically speaking, to me, if it's just Allah, the only thing is Allah, meaning that Allah would have created the universe from Allah, from himself. It doesn't make any more sense to say anything else. Now they say, oh, he said be, and it was. Be would be vibration, it would be sound. If someone said be, that means you are now my you are now my sound, you are now my vibration, so it still come from me. But they say they are separate from the creator. So you can't be separate from it, you came from it. Without it, you wouldn't exist. It's like, for me, I can't be separate from my children because I created them. They say God created everything, but it's separate from it. To me, that makes absolutely no sense. You cannot separate yourself from where you came. If the universe is the universe, it would be a representation or a part of God, not separate from God. It would be him in another form. When you get into quantum mechanics, right? Quantum mechanics says everything is already in existence simultaneously in one way, shape or form. If I was to say to you, did you exist 60 years ago? You would probably say no. But if I said to you, but your mother and father were in existence 60 years ago, and the sperm and the egg were both in existence 60 years ago, you were already in existence 60 years ago in a different form. You weren't in this form, but you were actually in existence because the two things to make you were in existence, right? In a different form. If it came from somewhere, it already existed in a different form. Not the form it is in now, but the potential, because in quantum mechanics there's called a wave of potential, meaning anything is possible and everything is possible at any point in quote unquote time. If God created it, it already existed within God, just not in the form it is now. It's the potential for it is already within God, just like the potential for you as a baby is already in your parents' sperm and your parents' egg. An apple pie that isn't in your fridge or isn't in your oven right now is already in existence. Why? Because there are apples, there is sugar, and it's not in existence in that form, but in the other form, it's definitely in existence. I wasn't here in this form 60 years ago, but I was in another form 60 years ago. For some mad, crazy reason nowadays, people down at Speaker's Corner think I'm being paid. They think I'm being paid by Zionists. That's what I've heard. Some kind of Jew backing is backing me to go down there and speak about Islam and whatnot and whatnot. I'm not being paid, by the way. I'd love to see that money. Yeah, if someone is paying me, I'd love to see that though. But what it is that they're not dealing with the actual core issues that I'm bringing. And the thing is, regardless of whether or not someone was paying me, is what I'm saying about the religion correct? It's that no one's grasping that. Like, I'm asking you to prove it, you can't prove it, so obviously I've been paid to say that. I don't need to get paid to say that. I'm just trying to understand the things that you're telling me and trying to understand the things that you say. You don't need to tell me to do that. But the paranoia, though, that these people have, I've noticed, is that, oh, because someone comes against their religion, they must be being paid by Mossad or some kind of Zionist movement or whatever. And me feeling the way I feel about white supremacy, me aligning myself with Zionists just wouldn't make sense anyway. But hey, you know what I mean? Anything's possible. And if these people believe that, you know, a man hopped on a white horse and went into the sky, so I guess anything's believable, bro. Yeah, people always keep asking me, like, Sarah, what is a pantheist? You call yourself a pantheist, right? And it's really quite simple. For me, it's the most basic way of viewing life before the major Abraham religions came in. Everything is connected. Everything is in a life cycle, right? So the sun gives life to the plants give life to the animals give life to us, we also eat the vegetation, and the water cycle is involved within that whole cycle. So it's like more ancient people saw that cycle as divine, because without it, they wouldn't be alive. They made like deities of the water, and deities of the earth, and deities of the sun. Not to say the sun created the universe. They never said the deity of the water created the universe, the deity of the tree created the universe, but they understood that those things were the most important. I asked a person a question, right? And I said, if all of the books that you hold dear and all of the words in those books, and everybody forgot all of the words in those books, all the books disappeared, and the words in those books disappeared, would life continue on this planet? The answer is, of course it would. But I said one thing, if that sun in the sky went out today, would life continue on this planet? No. So what is more important, the sun or the book that you hold in your hand? The sun is. And the ancient people knew this. They knew the sun was the most important thing. They knew that the water was the most important thing. They knew the earth was the most important thing. They knew the animals were the most important thing. But now people have forgotten those things in place of books and words and say, oh, we're spiritual. For me, there's nothing more spiritual than sitting down and sitting in nature and watching nature take place, watching nature do its thing. It's the most spiritual thing for me. No book that is written can ever replace sitting down in nature, right, and seeing what nature does. When you look at nature under a microscope, or you look at nature in the macrocosm and the microcosm, that is the most spiritual experience. And then you can kind of find answers as to, people say, oh, what's the purpose of life? The purpose of life is to continue life, as far as I know. Because everything that survives is trying to continue to survive and trying to plant seeds to continue to survive in one way, shape or form. A book can't tell me, a book can only tell me, let's say, give me a description of some kind of afterlife, which is either going to make me burn or either going to put me in heaven for the rest of my days, and no one can actually substantiate that. So as a pantheist, the most important thing for me as a pantheist is living in harmony with nature and understanding your relationship to nature.
I go via two schools of thought. I go via the Michael Bradley School of Thought, and I go via the Francis Cress Welsing School of Thought. And those two together, reading both of their books, Michael Bradley's The Iceman Inheritance and Francis Cress Welsing's The ISIS Papers, and a lot of other lectures, I feel like they've given me a well-rounded view as to why racism exists. Because no one goes into the why. Most people talk about racism not understanding what it actually is and the why and the motivation for it. Because you've got to understand that it's a psychological thing. There's a conversation going on in the minds of people when racism comes about. And so many people are scared to deal with it. They're scared to talk about it. It's like the elephant in the room that no one wants to speak about. But I love to speak about it. And I'd love to hear everyone else's views on it. I mean, if I'm honest, I don't think people are ever going to be honest about racism. That's my own personal belief. I don't think people are going to be honest, because it would mean looking inside yourself and looking in the mirror. Most people ain't ready to look inside that mirror and say, you know what, I'm this and I'm that and I do that because of that and that's bad and I'm a bad person. Most people ain't ready for that. I think the racism argument is one that needs to be spoken about honestly and openly. Like I said, I go by the school of thought of Frances Cress Welsing, and she breaks racism down to fear of genetic annihilation. Now, fear of genetic annihilation will lead you to do a lot of things and think a lot of things and create a system to stop that from happening. The black male in particular has the biggest potential to cause genetic annihilation on the planet to people who class themselves as white-skinned. Basically meaning if the populations of colour today had intercourse with all the females of the white-skinned population tomorrow and impregnated all of them, when the white-skinned population only make up 10% of the world's population and people of colour make up the other 90% of the world's population, the people of colour have dominant genes over the white, what dermatologists call a recessive gene. So you've got dominance and recessive. So the coloured gene will dominate the white recessive gene. And so you have to create a system to stop that from happening. Frances Cress Welsing did this in, I think it was the 70s or 80s. And she asked like white people honestly, do you want grandchildren that look like you? And most people would say, yeah, of course, I want grandchildren that look like me. So if the majority of people would say, if they're honest and say, yeah, well, I do want grandchildren that look like me and children that look like me. Because if everyone starts mixing, right, then that won't be allowed to happen. When Frances Welsing came out with the ISIS papers, people thought that she was talking about a conscious conversation. She's not. It's subconscious, and so the subconscious sometimes bubbles to the surface. When you go to lynchings, the first thing they would do to a black man after they lynched him was take his penis out. Why? There must be a reason. Psychologically, as she said herself, as a psychologist, she said, why were they going for the penis? There must be, what's going on here? Why they've gone for the penis? When you go to the Arab Muslim slave trade, same thing they did. Castrated the slaves, took their penis off. They understand that this thing will be the thing to eventually dominate them, so they want to stop it. You know, you have to couple that with the whole hyper-aggressive black male, the big black penis. You know, the whole conversation that goes on within white females sometimes, and they talk, and when you ask them to be honest, and they say, oh yeah, you know, are the rumors true about black guys, and black guys are this and black guys are... So there's a subconscious conversation going on about the black male penis. When Linford Christie became a runner, all people kept talking about, or the white media kept talking about, was how big his penis was. Let the man run, but you kept on talking about his penis. There is a subconscious thing about black male virility and black male balls or penis or whatever. And the thing is, Frances Cress Welsing always goes into it in her books and in her lectures, and she'll probably make more sense than me, because most people watching this probably thinking, nah, we talking about a penis for? But she goes into it. People keep judging other people or other cultures by their own standards. People will say, oh, human beings are destructive. I'll be like, no, they ain't. I can study anthropology and I can go to different cultures that aren't destructive. They live within the society, right? And they live within harmony with nature, harmony with the environment, harmony with their fellow people. There are certain branches of the human family that step outside of that. For me, nature is 100% a teacher as to how you should be. If you can't live in harmony with nature, meaning the natural environment in which you inhabit, if you can't live in harmony with it, there's something wrong with you. There's absolutely something wrong with you, because that environment gives you life. Without it, you will no longer have life. And if you constantly pollute it, and you constantly mess it up and disrespect it. You see, I've had a conversation at Speaker's Corner specifically about this, and people have said, Sarah, where's your guidance? Is what they say. We get our guidance from the Quran, we get our guidance from the Bible, we get our guidance from these books. And so you go to ancient cultures, right? are what you would call, not you, but people call primitive. And they say, they were pagan, and they were heathen, and they were this. I don't know any ancient cultures that did not live in harmony with their environment. They lived in harmony with their environment, and essentially nature and your natural environment is what gives you life. All of these different religious groups, Abrahamic religious groups in particular, always talk about guidance. Oh, but we get guidance from the book, and we get guidance from this, and we get guidance. So hang on, within that book, is you not supposed to live in harmony with nature? It doesn't say anything about that, well, from my knowledge, in the book. That should be paramount. So, but you go to these ancient cultures now, they never had a book, but they knew intrinsically, innately to live in harmony with their environment. But they were the ones that were wrong. Now we got polluted air, polluted water, genetically modified food. We are polluting the whole place. These people, they never did that. They had gods of the water, gods of the deities of the sea, deities of the tree, deities of the earth, deities of the sun, the moon, the stars. So they understood the divinity within nature, and they treated nature accordingly. These cultures, or these people who apparently are the ones that God gave the word to, you still can't live in harmony with your environment. That is a basic thing. That is like survival 101, to live in harmony with your environment, and you can't do that, you're polluting it. It don't make no sense to me. If you can't live in harmony with your environment, there's something wrong with you. I want people to leave their ego. I want people to suppress the ego. That's what I want. I want you to know that we are all on this one planet together. I want you to understand that your subjective belief just is that, a subjective belief. Your belief is no greater or no smaller than anybody else's belief, okay? So if you don't realize that we're all human beings and got to live on this planet together, then I don't know what to tell you.
What would your future message be to future Sarah?
That message will be very simple and very precise. It will go like this. Keep doing what you're doing. Stick to the agenda. Do not leave the agenda. Stay on your agenda.